so not the one.
Maybe the cat was the one. Okay, so today's panel is talking about the Matrix Online story. As some of you know, we do have a story that advances as the game goes along from month to month. We are currently in chapter what?
9?
11.1.
Wait, Morpheus just died, right?
No, he came back.
We're in 11.1.5 since Silver came a week early.
Yes.
Somebody logged in before they came over here.
And drink.
Mercedes from Vector, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, we're in chapter 11. We have 10 chapters before that you can go and play through in archive missions. Who has actually done that?
Everything but the scarf.
Yeah. Now, I know when you go through these missions, you probably just click through the text as quickly as possible.
Sometimes.
I can do it for grammatical errors.
How many have you found?
Not very many.
Okay.
That's all our patches had.
That's right, I'm on top of those.
See, I wasn't the one bringing it up.
Conveniently enough, a couple weeks ago I wrote up a brief summary of those previous 10 painful long chapters, which I'm just going to read through now so everybody's caught up because, well, I certainly needed a refresher when I went back to write this. And so as we go through this, everybody should be on the ball, in the know as to what's going on in the Matrix. And then we can talk about what has worked and what hasn't. Maybe where the story's going to go.
Yeah, can you shut that?
Maybe a microphone.
I can just
I don't know. Dude, we have pocket knives.
For the Matrix, you don't get any kind of accessory or prop.
We do. We get a screen with no projector. The projectors were nerfed.
We get red.
I think all
Maybe
animal
somebody
stuff
stole
on the
the
back.
projector
Or?
for the scavenger hunt.
You just had to get a picture of it.
It was me.
Yeah, but if you take a picture of it and then you steal it, then nobody else gets a picture.
Like I was saying, pocket knife.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Especially how violent this bunch of people is.
Maybe not violent.
We just had the agency thing and somebody's asking about can you kill civilians? It's like
In the game?
in the game. Yeah.
Wait.
Can you?
Not as such, no.
Wait.
Yeah.
But if you set off a bomb, it may...
The building will topple right on them.
They're like no clipping, so that goes right through.
And back to the
Are you-
story. Back to the Matrix.
Wait, I don't want to talk about killing civilians.
I like killing blue pills in the Matrix. Yeah.
That's fun.
That's
You
wrong.
do that a lot.
We just had a recent mission where we killed some people.
I know, I enjoyed it very much.
He enjoys not having a challenge. Just run for punch him once.
I do play on recursion.
So we go through in chapters. Each chapter is divided into 3. In our first 1.1, that was really just kind of the truce had just happened at the end of the movies. Zion and the machines are in this sort of Cold War state where they're not supposed to fight each other. Of course, on the servers, people are always PvPing and then moaning that you're breaking the truce, you're breaking the truce. So that was good fun. In chapter 1.2, Morpheus sort of became estranged from Zion, and he started going after the machines and demanding that they return Neo's body. Zion was like, "Whoa, we don't really know Morpheus. We're following this truce thing." And then some strange groups started to appear in the Matrix. There were these agents with glowing red eyes, and then there were some people with masks over their faces that we knew what they were doing. In 1.3, Morpheus was killed by this program made of flies called the Assassin. Niobe arrives in the Matrix sort of at the head of her own group of people, and she is determined to avenge Morpheus's death. And she has a right-hand man called Eno, who was a very fun-loving fellow. In chapter 2.1, Niobe has found out that it was the Merovingian who hired the assassin who killed Morpheus, and basically everybody's like, well, it's time to go beat up on the Merovingian. And people were finding out that, well, okay, the assassin's made out of flies, let's get insecticide spray to kill the flies. Makes sense. In chapter 2.2, people started assembling weapons that would spray this insecticide onto the poor assassin. People found out that he was moving through phone booths, through phone lines in the city, and one would finally go to this garbage barge where he lived, fittingly enough. The Red Eye agents were found to be vandalizing phone booths across the city, although nobody knew why. In chapter 2.3, this wrinkly old guy in a uniform called the General showed up with a bunch of commandos in a helicopter, and he was just, hey everybody, I'm here to help you out. The assassin started to take over the city with clouds of flies and all kinds of nasty stuff. He split up into four assassins who were hunted down and sprayed to death by intrepid operatives across the city. Who was here at the assassin killing spree? Still have your flick guns?
Yeah. And the blind amber.
Still using.
Yeah.
I know, I was in an event the other day, and I was looking back through the screenshot. Oh no, it was the biological interface party. And I'm looking back through the screenshots, and when people were fighting the super tough ninjas at the end of the party, looking through screenshots, and somebody was there with a flick gun, like naked, spraying like level 95 ninja, you know.
Common knowledge that fire repellent kills ninjas.
I think it just sort of irritates their eyes. In chapter 3.1, Niobe really went after the Merovingian, blaming him for having Morpheus whacked. The machines also thought that that was a bad move on the Merovingian's part, so they went after him too. The Merovingian was kind of everybody's whooping boy because the Zion and the machine still had this truce thing. And then there were these strange boxes that appeared around the city, hissing and making strange noises. Everybody was puzzled. In chapter 3.2, a funny-looking guy named Cryptos began popping out of the boxes and declaring that everybody should go back to, well, I forget how he phrased it. He had this little ditty that he would chant. But basically that everybody should go back to sleep in machine pods. And then Red Pills were like, I don't know if that's such a great idea. The name of the group of people who wore masks was revealed in chapter 3.2 as the Cypherites. Up until then, I don't think we leaked it. Did we leak the name, really?
The rep thing always showed up as Masked Man for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, did
Yeah.
it? So we didn't leak that.
Yeah, even after like they were announced as Cypherites for a while.
one
they
thing
were
he
still
did
not.
Well, the thing is, you had like people who were acting as Cypherites when they were like Mervs instead. They just kind of like
Yeah.
used the name anyway, Cypher. Like, and
Were there like Cypher factions or something?
Yeah, like they were. Yeah, they were like mass people there. That's what they always did and stuff. So.
You want about that one where they had like people going and go, you got to kill this person like from your own org or something, wasn't it? And get like send screenshots into the major.
I guess so. I didn't do that. I thought they were kind of.
Well, yeah, because there were some of those, we had some live team people who would run around. Didn't we at that point?
Yeah.
Team here and,
Yeah, the guys
Yeah,
that
I
played
was
Jimmy.
I was there when
Yeah,
the
that was
machines
really
got like
good.
the first tags, and it was on recursion. It was like international somewhere. I know the collective was there, and they're like, "Want your tags?" No. They were the only people there. It was.
okay.
Should have got them from the start.
In chapter 3.3, the general pitched in with Niobe and Zion to fight the Merovingian, and people found out that Cryptos used to be one of Morpheus's buddies and a big, fervent anti-machinist guy. And now he's this magician who pops out of boxes. In chapter 4.1, Zion used kill codes that the general gave them to kill exiles, vampires, and lupines, and things like that. And people were searching for Kryptos' base of operations. In chapter 4.2, the kid appeared, the kid from the movies. He gathered a bunch of operatives from Zion, and they took off. Said, listen, we're going to go after this Kryptos guy. We really don't like his face. We don't like this whole, let's go back to sleep thing. That's against what Neo stood for. They formed a group called E Pluribus Neo, or EPN for short, and they flew away from Zion. The Merovingian, meanwhile, was working on making weapons to kill the Zion's commandos, and those are called what?
EMCP device.
EMCP.
Anybody still have some of those?
Yeah.
I never got one.
Didn't we give those out missions or something?
Yeah.
And
You could trade in for the enhanced
Why didn't you get one?
snakes and stuff.
It
Oh
must
wait.
have been one of those phases where I was upset with SOE and I didn't I'm away from the game and then I came back and it's like crap, I missed out on stuff.
That was when we gave out the boxers, right?
That is a lie.
Everybody still have theirs?
Just been hiding. Every time May blocks, everybody's working.
Throw on your pants.
In chapter 4.3, the general came by to Niobe and he says, hey, there's these cheat codes being carried around the city by a bicycle messenger. I have the key. And then Niobe's right-hand man, Anom, fumbled the key, which fell into a van, and the van drove away. So everybody's like, oh my god, we have to find the case of the cheat codes being carried by the bicycle messenger and the key that unlocks them. And so there's a big race. I think both Zion and the machines were involved in that to find both of these. But in the end, Zion came up with both. In chapter 5.1, Niobe used the key to unlock the cheat code case, but Anom was there and he said, hey, I'm going to steal these, and he stole the codes, he shot Niobe, and he trapped her in a little construct or something where she was trapped. Everybody decided, okay, Anom is the enemy of the week, and the Merovingian, surprisingly enough, decided to offer his help in rescuing Niobe to Zion. And this was part of the Merovingian's clever plan to get Zion off his back, which didn't entirely work, but did okay. And at that point, the weird guy called the Effectuator showed up, and he was one of the Merovingian's scientists who helps manage constructs, and so he was going to help out with Zion tracking down the construct where Niobe was hidden. Chapter 5.2, Zion found and rescued Niobe with the help of the Merovingian and the Effectuator. The machines in the Merovingian began tracking down and killing Anom's level 70 lieutenants who had drunk the cheat codes and become super powerful and were me-wadding people and all kinds of horrible things. And the machines also managed to chase the general out of the Matrix. They were pretty fed up with him by this time for having given the cheat codes out, and they pretty much blamed the whole Anom thing on the general, which was legitimate. In chapter 5.3, Anom named his group Unlimit, and they began attacking the city, particularly this mega corporation who provides all kinds of consumer goods and products called Penthurst Amaranth. Penthurst Amaranth, or PA, Representative Brenda Utley called on Zion to help come and stop the Unlimit from taking over her company. The Merovingian, meanwhile, was working on these cheat codes. He thought, hey, here's a source of pretty cool power. He captured one of the lieutenants named Bairn, who was obsessed with Niobe, or Persephone, sorry. Chapter 6.1, Unlimit kidnapped Brenda Utley, and they were going to take over her mega corporation in the city. The machines learned about Anom's twisted past with his mom and mother problems and all kinds of things from one of his Unlimit members, Mylak, whose friend Caboclo, the guy with 6 arms, had been tortured and brutally slaughtered by Anom for not wanting to go kill civilians in the city like Anom wanted to. The Merovingian was using cheat codes that he synthesized from Baron's blood or something like that. I don't remember to restore the twins, those two ghost-like guys who got blown up in the movies. And they were being led around for a little while separately as legs and torsos and things around the city. And E Pluribus Neo ended up rescuing Brenda from the Unlimited people taking over her company, which was in a live event. Chapter 6.2, Anon was killed by agents, one of them disguised as a mother, who then shot him. The machines asked for access to Zion's mainframe, because they were saying, hey, all these problems are coming out of Zion, we need to know what's going on. Zion learned that the machines had a massive force of sentinels ready to swoop down on Zion at any moment. The Cypherites, meanwhile, offered to infiltrate Zion for the machines. Zion thought about it, not too hard, and said, you know, we're not going to give you access to our database. So the architect ordered increased surveillance of Zion, and he kind of said, okay, Cypherites, start feeding us information from Zion. The Merovingian quashed an exile rebellion in the slums, and in doing so discovered that the general's commandos had been doing things, I think particularly in Morrow and Blackwoods. Chapter 6.3, the general kidnapped Sati. Seraph tried to rescue Sati from the general in his helicopter and fell out of the helicopter into the river and disappeared. The sky, as a result, began to turn red with Sati gone. Agents dumped the cheat codes they had confiscated from Anom into the exact same river that Seraph had just fallen into, and one lodged underneath a pier and did not fall into the water. Zion was fighting the general and his new stealth commandos who were in these black skin-tight suits. The general revealed to Zion that he was the leader of the final attack force on Zion at the end of the war. And he basically just did that to piss them off. The machines began shutting down the general's access points inside the city, and they found that he had a base on the surface of the earth called Stalingrad, which is not the actual Stalingrad, that was just a clever code name. The Merovingian made a deal with the general to assist him in exchange for the general's help in making a kill code to take out the Oracle, his longtime nemesis. Chapter 7.1, Seraph crawled out of the river and began ganking people across the city. Civilians and red pills alike. Zion found out that these people had been overwritten by the machines, and that Seraph could cure them now that he'd been affected by this cheat code in the river water. There had meanwhile been rumors of Morpheus sightings across the city, and Morpheus finally appeared in this sort of staticky image in front of a bunch of operatives who were like, oh my god, it's Morpheus. And he was delivering this message basically saying that that the machines were holding him and Neo captive in the machine city. The machines sent sentinels after the general's base, Stalingrad, and they were also finding out ways to break the stealth maneuvers of his commandos so they wouldn't keep popping out of nowhere and ganking people. In a live event, Seraph came and found Kryptos and beat him down, revealing that he had been overwritten by the machines and had been a puppet of the machines all this time. Kryptos was pretty messed up and like jabbering error codes and things, and Bale pulled him out of the simulation, and that was kind of a shocker for them. Zion and the others kind of realized from that hey, the machines have been fooling us all along. They called this thing a truce, but you know, in fact, they've been supporting these Cypherites who've been attacking us, spying on us, that kind of thing. The general helped the Merovingian locate one of the cheat code files, which he said was needed to make a kill code for the Oracle. And he said that you'll need to find this program called the Apothecary, who can actually manufacture a cheat code using this, or a kill code using this cheat code. He said, okay, but you'll need the train man to get the Apothecary out of the machine servers into the Matrix. And the train man, of course, had not been seen since he ran off in the movies. So they had to go track him down. In chapter 7.2, Seraph was restored to normal by Zion, and he helped them locate Sati, rescue her from the general. Morpheus is appearing across the city saying, we've been captured, you know, come fight the machines, they're evil. but it was pretty obvious by now that he was this sort of messed up program, and he was stuttering and repeating messages and all kinds of things. The machine sentinels were fighting the general sentinels outside Stalingrad in this big stormy battle. The machines shut down the general's network in the Matrix. Crypto's kind of recovered from being hijacked by Seraph, and he asked the machines to reinsert him into the pods. He couldn't take this thing, and they messed up his eyes, and he was just in pain. He's seen code that he doesn't want to see, and Agent Gray told him that reinsertion did not exist. The train man brought the apothecary into the Matrix. The Merovingian had the apothecary work on a kill code. They tested it on Agent Pace. It seemed to kind of work, so they said, okay, let's go ahead with this. They finished the code, and the Merovingian brutally let the apothecary get killed off by... Actually, I was trying to remember who actually killed the apothecary.
Xenophone.
What?
Xenophone. There was a liaison that killed.
Which org, though?
EPN.
There was an EPN.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the machines were getting these spy reports from Zion saying that all these men and material are leaving Zion City, but we don't know where they're going, and even Zion operatives didn't know what was going on with that. Chapter 7.3, this guy was back to normal now that Sati was rescued. The machines leveled Stalingrad, reduced it to rubble. Zion and E Pluribus Neo discovered that this Morpheus guy who was appearing across the city was in fact a simulacrum created by the general to try to create strife between Zion and the machines and break the truce. The Merovingian tried to execute his plot to kill the Oracle, but was foiled by the Kid and E Pluribus Neo. And you got cookies.
I got a lot of tray of cookies. I like that. I own Pace, and then the next day I say the Oracle.
What do you do in your spare time?
Zion found out that Cypherite spies had infiltrated their city in the real. The Merovingian hid the general inside his white hallways because the machines were hot on his trail, and he stored some of his commando programs away in his private constructs. The machines gunned down the train man who sort of crawled into a hallway and disappeared. Chapter 8.1, the Cypherite spies in Zion discovered that Zion has built a new city, which they creatively called New Zion. The machine said,
So original.
The machine said, hey, that's not cool. You've broken the truce. We're not going to let you, go around red pilling people anymore. We're going to kick your ass. Zion and the machine started fighting again. The Merovingian, meanwhile, was following up on the Morpheus simulacrum's story about humans being used as batteries, and he said, that sounds kind of weird. I'm going to send out my new Sentinel commandos, which I've conveniently stored away from the general, and they're going to go scout out what's actually out on the surface of the planet. Chapter 8.2, Zion turned to ex-Zionite named Daniel Wright, who was the head of a research development company in the city, because the machines had found a way to sabotage the red pill program that Zion used to wake people up from the Matrix. And they could now basically put a stop to that just by disrupting the trace program. So Zion went to Daniel Wright. She said, okay, we'll start working on a new pill that they can't hack, which worked out, except she got killed by the machines. And the machines also found that Wright still had direct access to Zion's mainframe. They discovered that access, and they inserted a virus into Zion's mainframe. Meanwhile, Cypherite spy inside Zion blew up Zion's command center. The virus went off, took out the mainframe, and basically Zion's city got wiped out by a massive attack. In Chapter 8.3, Sentinels attacked Zion's crippled city. Everybody had to flee. Commander Locke was missing. Roland, who was a guy in the movies, was promoted to the new commander since Commander Locke was AWOL. Roland's crew member Colt appeared as a new Zion captain, and he started appearing in events and stuff like that, missions. Another crew member from Roland's crew, Mauser, was noticed by Merovingians who captured some info feeds from the machines to be leading Commander Locke through the rubble of the destroyed city, and he was like, okay, where are they going? Mauser was not in contact with anybody though, so that was kind of a mystery. Nobody knew where Locke was. The machines used data they captured from Zion's mainframe to hunt down and kill veteran Zion operatives. They had got the Morpheus simulacrum to actually help them unlock this code archive from the mainframe, which sort of ticked off Zion. And the Morpheus simulacrum was basically confused and not sure which side he should take. And actually, I can't remember why he decided to help the machines. Does anybody remember that?
Cryptos talked to him.
Okay. It's like, hey man, we used to be pals. Let's step aside. In chapter 9.1, oh sorry, at the end of chapter 8.3, the Merovingian found out that the machines were removing humans from the pod systems alive and doing who knows what with them. In chapter 9.1, a glowing guy appeared in the Barrens and immediately just killed a bunch of agents and stomped off into an alleyway or something. The machine suddenly pulled back their forces in the reel, and they tried to prevent this guy, this glowing man, from making contact with Zion. But they didn't want to attack him directly, as we'd seen he could just take out agents with a wave of his hand. The machines eventually had to admit to their operatives that this guy was a human who had been born outside of the pod system, but he had some direct control over the matrix itself, using override codes that could override the simulation. The Merovingian was trying to schmooze the intruder, as he was known, and Pluribus Neo, taking advantage of the machines having pulled back all their forces, moved into the old ruined Zion city. In chapter 9.2, the intruder pumped Zion for information about their history. He was asking them about Neo and Trinity and all that kind of stuff. EPM began to fortify Zion's old city, and while they were doing that, they found Commander Locke wounded in a hidden lab on the surface. He told them that he had been stowed there by Mauser, who had then saved him from Sentinels but gotten killed off doing that. The machines tried to convince this glowing man to leave the Matrix because he was causing all kinds of problems, killing programs and overriding things. The intruder was becoming frustrated because he couldn't find what he was looking for. He wouldn't tell anybody what it was. But he finally went to the machines and he said, give me this biological interface program that I want. And they said, well, there's only one, but it's not in the Matrix, and we don't have it. The Merovingian was searching for programs that the intruder might want, but he was like, no, it's not that, it's nothing like that. In chapter 9.3, a second glowing man appeared named Carline, and he was after the first guy whose name turned out to be Halborn. The Morpheus simulacrum was seen contacting mysterious exile programs in the Barrens. Halborn, who was the first guy who showed up, the glowing man, he learned from the machines that the Oracle had created this program, and he went after the Oracle. The Merovingian said, hey, this guy's going to go whack the Oracle. Okay, I'll help him out. Of course, Zion did not like that, and they were trying to stop him. And the Oracle, meanwhile, who was being sought by this deadly killer, contacted E Pluribus Neo and the Cypherite separately and gave them each a piece of an encrypted program and told them to keep it safe. At the end of this subchapter, Halborn found the Oracle and he said, give me the program. She said no, and he killed her.
Were you there?
Who was there?
I was at work. I was at work, dude. I was at work.
Couldn't savor everything.
No, I tried to do that one when nobody would find them, although a couple people did, but they didn't, because I'd been giving out Terminator bits.
Yeah.
And
Just look at Zoodrag when you said that.
and the way I had planned this out, but I had forgotten about this loophole, was that Halborn was going to use his Terminate override to kill the Oracle, who was a program, and he could just sort of turn her off. But so I was actually going to use Terminate on her. But to do that, I had to make her vulnerable to Terminate. So if somebody had walked along at that exact moment and used Terminate right before the intruder had used it, they would have got the kill on the Oracle. So I had to like time it, so there was like this split like 1/10 of a second window where somebody could have done that, but I was like trying to like stun all the operatives nearby before I fired the thing off.
We all sat there like sweating. No, no.
Yeah.
The Oracle.
Fortunately, it was just like a couple noobs who were there and they didn't know what was going on.
Macros are your friend. Macros. That's all you need.
In chapter 10.1, the Oracle was now dead. Sati, Seraph, and the Morpheus Simulacrum vanish. Halborn continues looking for this program, even though his basic real hope of getting it, the Oracle, is gone. The machines in this sort of tricky exchange said, hey, why don't you Cypherites go help him out? And they led him to this exchange between Zion and E Pluribus Neo, E Pluribus Neo was giving Commander Locke over to Zion to take to their new city. Halborn arrives in the middle of this. He's like, this is bad. And he gets out of there. Not before Zion had noticed him. They managed to track him down as a result of that. There was also a large attack from machines and Merovingian ships trying to get Commander Locke, who was being transferred. But there was this massive hovercraft battle. Was anybody at that one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
I don't know what time it was in the morning when that finished. I was
Some
like,
other
yeah,
rank
is that
message.
involved?
It was like 6 in the morning for me.
You were the last one alive.
I was like,
I'm not giving up.
But in the end, Pluribus Neo and Zion fought off the hostile ships and managed to get Locke back to the new city.
What would have happened if someone else won that? Like, would it have changed, or was it pretty much?
It would have changed.
So.
No, not going to elaborate
So
on
we
that.
don't affect the story of the game,
So
we
hold
expect
on,
it to
hold on.
do.
Sorry, you just opened like Pandora's box here. So we are going to have events, from the looks of it, that like depending on the outcome of the players will actually change the storyline. So
That's the hope. I
it
mean,
can happen in some way.
you know, but really, you know, I tell people this, and I don't think people believe me, but you know, every time people interact in a live event, it does affect what's going on. It affects how the story characters react, and even how they grow in their personalities. I mean, you know, a lot of times I start out, and these characters are really just sort of, you know, archetypes or
Generic.
yeah, but they.